So 25.2 is 22.3. We have a repeat. We have pull-ups, thrusters, chest to bars, thrusters, bar muscle ups and thrusters, increasing weight on the thrusters, increasing difficulty on the gymnastics. The reps will go down and there's a little double under snack between those movements each round. We've seen this before in 2022. We had 4:07 and 4:11 as the fastest male and female times. I think we'll break the 4 minutes this time, but I think overall the 2022 leaderboard will hold up quite nicely with slight improvement overall as a community in performance, but I don't think we're going to see a drastic shift this time. Maybe I'm wrong. We're going to go ahead and break this thing down. We're going to talk about the standards, the announcement show, pacing, the movements, warm up, and then at the end we're going to have a little clip with Throster Olason, one of the coaches from CrossFit Reykjavik, right after he finished the workout, just like we did last week. Let's get started. Standards. You have to have the barbell 5 feet away from the pull-up rig. Makes sense, right? For safety. Start behind the barbell. The tie break is going to be the thrusters. So when you finish 21 thrusters, that's your tie break until you finish 18, until you finish the workout. A lot of people will get stuck on the bar muscle ups, and even few repetitions there will count, but a lot of people will not get any. So that tie break is going to be significant, and it might be that it's a good idea to do this workout twice and do it once with really focusing on the tie break, and the second time with really focusing on getting as far as you can in the workout. Those are not the same. Just something to consider. And then finally, the barbell. You can have multiple barbells or someone loading up the barbell for you. You really need to do that unless you want to not only waste time, but waste energy. And you don't want to waste any energy in this workout. Trust me, you'll figure that out by latest on the second round. Let's talk about the announcement show. So we have some data, if you go to our Instagram and look at the analysis, both from 25, so Sydney and Emily, but then we also have some 2022 data just to give a more complete picture. And the one thing I want you to note on that very first graph is that Noah's performance was just steady all the way through, even the third round, whereas most of the other athletes had that dip when they got to the bar muscle ups and then a dip when they got to the thrusters. So if you are in that top 1%, this workout happens on the third round and everything else is just a prelude. Positioning yourself for success on the first and second round will pay off on the third round. Now, most people will not pace the workout like this. The other thing I want you to notice is that the time distribution per movement, it's going to be about 1 to 110, maybe up to 120 on the double unders, depending on your proficiency, if you can get through them. And that means that they're not a significant chunk of time in this workout. Really, the two levers that you have to pull are the gymnastics and the thruster. And you only have a few things you can do. You can move faster, which won't pay off to almost anyone unless you're gunning for a really fast time. That means that the only things you can do is to break them up differently and control the amount of rest between the sets. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about pacing. But it's going to be really important to understand where your strengths and weaknesses lie in this workout so that you can have a strategy that's going to maximize your strengths while also trying to minimize those weaknesses. So let's move on to talking about the pacing. Now, if you want to have a really fast time, you have to move fast and go unbroken. Fast transitions, that's it. Simple. If you think you might be getting a time that's going to be in that top, 1,200 athletes, at top 1%, in the open, I think you have to still go pretty fast, but you don't need to rush any of the movements. You can just move at your natural pace, which I recommend for most people to stay more relaxed. And you can break things up a little bit. Meaning you could break up the gymnastics, for example, at the beginning to save some energy for those bar muscle ups later on. Short break on the pull-up bar will not cost you a lot of time. A break on the thrusters will cost you a little bit more time, but it might also save you a significant amount of energy for that final barbell, for example, or for those bar muscle ups. So even if you're in that pretty fast here, I want you to consider breaking up to 2 sets, for example, from the beginning on the first and the second round, even 3 sets if needed, to ensure success on that final round where this workout is really really starts at the high level. Now, if you're a more normal person, you're maybe not working towards that top 1%, we're going to focus on you. Now you can break these sets up more, and you should definitely break them from the beginning. So let's say an example would be on the first round, you do 3 sets. You could do 7-7-7, but that's mentally oftentimes hard and physically hard. The first set is a little bit too small, and the last set is a little bit too big. So instead, something like 8-7-6, for example, this descending rep scheme, you can have a more drastic start with a bigger set and go to smaller sets. That kind of like a negative split is going to oftentimes be a very good both mentally and physically for you as you break through the sets. The other way to do it would be to start with smaller sets from the beginning. If you're really struggling, for example, with the gymnastics portion, do even 3s, 5s, small sets in there, and then when you get to thrusters, you might be able to do a little bit bigger sets to make up some of that time. Now, if you're doing 3 sets on the first round, so let's say 8-7-6, you can use that same strategy from the pull-ups to the barbell. Or you might, for example, say, I'm going to do 3 sets on the gymnastics, but I'm going to do 2 sets on the barbell, and now you're doing 21 repetitions, maybe you're doing 12 and 9, you're doing 15 and 6, 14 and 7, something like that, where you're still breaking up the movement, you're getting a little breather, you're getting a little bit off tension, re-establishing blood flow. It might be a really beneficial way to do the workout from the beginning so that you have more steam, not only for the chest to bars and especially the bar muscle ups, but also that second barbell is a pretty significant weight to do for 18 repetitions. So just consider breaking the workout up from the beginning, doing maybe 2-3 sets on the gymnastics, 2-3 sets on the barbell on those first 2 rounds. And even if that means that you get a little bit later to those bar muscle ups, you're going to have a lot more energy left, which is going to allow you to maybe get more repetitions or even get through them and get to that final barbell. You're playing with this balance of how much time am I spending and how much energy am I expanding. And the faster you go, the more energy you spend. So you have to be conscious of your own capacity, both general conditioning and also movement specific capacity to get a good result in this workout. Let's talk about the movements. So first of all, let's cover the pull-up, the chest to bar and the bar muscle up. So on the pull-ups, a couple of things that I oftentimes see is that people are pulling too much with the arms and the timing is off on the normal pull-ups, and that can sometimes be fixed by changing your grip. So what I like to see is your wrist over your elbow instead of inside, especially if in a workout like that, it's going to increase your cycle time. You're going to be able to move faster. You also want to make sure that you keep a good tension on your midline as you're doing the pull-ups, especially if you're doing the butterfly or in that transition point if you're doing a regular kip. That's going to be helpful as well. And that's going to be the same case for also the chest to bar. What I also saw a lot this morning looking at the class is that people, when they're trying to do normal pull-ups, they're so used to doing chest to bar pull-ups that they're doing chest to bars and then kind of transition awkwardly into doing normal pull-ups. Make sure that you fine-tune your pull-ups in the warm-up so that you can do normal pull-ups that meet the range of motion, but nothing more, so you can be as efficient as you can on the normal pull-up. Then the chest to bar is what we do most of the time. You should be more used to doing those. When you come to the bar muscle up, you need to understand that we're moving from doing a more pull-up kind of movement to doing a more kind of like a lat pull down and engaging those lats, really going not to the bar, but going around the bar. And that's going to be a really significant shift for a lot of people of getting those lats engaged, especially if you're not so good on the bar muscle ups and not quite yet haven't figured out the mechanics for them. So that's going to obviously be reflected in your warm-up as well, making sure that those lats are going. Now, the other thing on the bar muscle up is that it's even more important on the pull-ups to jump up from slightly behind the bar into that hollow position, so you then go straight into the first repetition. So you're not swinging around the bar, but you're doing that efficient kip around the bar, making sure you have tight midline in that transition and an efficient hip pop as you're pushing down on the on the bar with those lats to get over the bar. On the way down, get those feet in front of the bar, don't go straight down, but you want to make sure you get straight into that next kip. On the thrusters, the key thing really here is going to be the sequence. You want to make sure that you pop the hips open before you press the bar overhead. And you can practice this by doing some front squats in the warm-up where you're just popping up the barbell and then only then transitioning into doing full thrusters. It's very easy on the lighter weights especially to start to press with the arms early before you've extended the hips. And while it feels fast at the beginning and easy, it's going to come back and haunt you on the second, and especially if you get there on that third round when you're more fatigued. Make sure you maximize the use of the hips and use the arms only as little as you have to. Make sure you breathe on every repetition of the thruster. If you cannot breathe, you're probably pressing early and struggling because there is too much tension because you did not have a good hip drive. Now for the double unders, a few things. One important thing is to choose the right rope. You need to have a rope that you can handle. So a very thin rope is fast, but it's harder to feel. So you need to have a thickness of rope that's appropriate for your skill level. The same goes for the length of the rope. A shorter rope, it's going to be faster and better, so to speak, in the long term. But you might need to have a slightly longer rope at the beginning if you're not as proficient yet with the double unders. So make sure you find a good compromise in your warm-up, in your prep, so that you know which rope is going to be the best one for you. The other thing that we see is that when you fatigue, the arms start to come out on the double unders, and that means that again, that short rope is going to get more difficult. So if the way to avoid that is to keep your elbows relatively close to the body, keep your shoulders relaxed, and keep your hands around where your hips are. If you have tendency to go out, again, consider that in your rope selection, but do try to keep those shoulders relaxed and arms close to the body all the way through. It's going to help you just get through the double unders a little bit easier. And now, finally, we're going to talk about the warm-up. The one thing that I want you to think about is that this is going to be a big cardiovascular and lactate hit, so you want to have a good cardiovascular warm-up. We have warm-ups on our website that you can follow that will help you get there. The other thing is I want you to make sure that you prep your front rack position. There's going to be a lot of arm pump in this workout, which is going to make that compressed position even harder. And when you don't have a good front rack, you tend to rely more on your arms rather than your hips to get the bar overhead. All of those things will snowball together into making the thrusters just more difficult for you. So make sure you prepped your cardiovascular system, make sure you prepped your front rack position. And then finally, of course, you want to make sure that you can get into all the other positions, the bottom of the squat and the overhead position to finish the reps with good form. And what we talked about in the movements, that you've dialed in your mechanics, especially for the normal pull-up, but also that you have a kip on the bar muscle ups that you can trust when you're fatigued. So all of that happens in the warm-up. When you're prepping these movements, make sure you don't do too many repetitions, but you do quality repetitions in each movement so that you can rely on your technique when you're tired at the end. That's it. Quite a few things in here. Ultimately, you just have to start with a pace that's going to be appropriate for you. Don't be afraid of breaking down the movements and trust your mechanics. If you move well, you're going to be efficient. You're going to get further in this workout. I'd like to say have fun, but I don't think this is going to be so much fun. Good luck. Okay, thruster, you just finished 25.2. How are you feeling?
Feeling good now. 20 minutes out of the workout.
Yeah, so what was your first impression after having done that?
Honestly, the workout hits you after you gone through it. It will get hard, of course, but you'll feel it more after than during.
Yeah, so it's bad during and towards the end especially, but it only gets worse from there. It's like that classic kind of Fran lactate building up. Okay, so we talked about a couple of things, and you said something about just the prepping for this workout.
Yeah, before you go, be smart about the warm-up. Get hot, get sweaty, do a proper warm-up, loosen up the front rack, go into all the basic movement patterns that you're going through in the workout, squats, pull-ups, etc.
Yeah, make sure you can hit those positions. You especially said that the front rack was something that you wished you would have.
I wish I had prepped that more than I actually did. Yeah. So you'll be able to breathe, relax more in the positions that you're going through.
Yeah, and then once you've done all that, then it's 3, 2, 1. You realize something on the first round that you hadn't discussed.
Yeah, so before you go, talk to your judge, and if you have a loading team, assistant to the side, have everything ready and set up before you go. In my run, I trusted my judge to have everything set, and everything wasn't set, so I had to wait when I got to the second bar, the second weight, for them to load my bar because it wasn't ready after my first set of double unders.
So you got a cheeky little break.
I got a cheeky little break.
Yeah, but make sure that you have everything set up.
But those seconds,
those seconds will definitely cost you on the leaderboard. And then we talked a little bit about you're a pretty strong guy, and how should you approach this workout depending on your strengths?
Play into your strength. If the squats and thrusters are easy for you, play with that and be then smart on the pull-up bar, on the gymnastic movements. And on the opposite side, if you're stronger on the gymnastic movements. Be smart on the thrusters.
Yeah.
Break them up.
Yeah, and especially one thing to consider is that if you don't yet have too many bar muscle ups, that it's easy to go very hard at the beginning of the workout, burn yourself out, and when you get to those bar muscle ups, when you had 3, now you have none, and they will not be coming back anytime soon.
You will not magically happen to squeeze those extra 5 in when you have been failing for 2 or 3 attempts.
Yeah, so it's really, you have to really play this workout to your strengths and be reasonable and realistic about how you're going to approach it.
Exactly.
But what's going to happen on Monday?
We'll see. Maybe I'll redo it, but probably not.
I guess time will tell.
Yeah.